Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 6 Part 20 based on novel. So let's start. Thousand Elephant City was located near the central region of the ancient battlefield. As one of the few cities that one had to pass through to enter the central region, the business and vastness of the city had reached an unfathomable stage. The entire city practically covered the mountain range, a construct of unimaginable proportions. In addition, as one of the few super cities in the ancient battlefield, it was different from the other chaotic areas. Rules and regulations were present here, and the faction that controlled this city was not from any of the empires in the ancient battlefield, but were stationed here by the super sects. With the super sects stationed here, no matter how untamed the geniuses and monsters from the various empires were, none of them dared to be so wanton in this place. Even though the troops stationed here were casually chosen by the super sects and their strength alone would perhaps not be much to fear, this strength was merely superficial. The prestige contained within the two words, super sects, was enough to cause everyone here to behave themselves. Of course, this did not mean that one had to behave inside the city. One could still fight if one wished here, as long as one did not go too overboard. The super sect troop stations here were willing to close an eye. After all, they did not want to waste time on instilling obedience into these wild fellows. Thus, Thousand Elephant City was undoubtedly much more regulated compared to the lawless and chaotic areas in the ancient battlefield. After yet another half a day of traveling, Lin Dong's group crossed the towering mountain before the shocking scene of a vast city that stretched to the end of their sights, filled their eyes. The towering walls shot straight into the clouds and spread out in both directions. However, even after reaching the limit of one's sight, the city walls still did not stop. After entering the ancient battlefield, Lin Dong had seen quite a few large cities. However, compared to the city currently before his eyes, they were akin to dwarfs meeting a giant. In the skies just outside the city, wind sounds wove together into a single entity. Countless figures flew in from all directions before landing outside the city walls. Among those uncountable figures, Lin Dong could sense some extremely powerful presences. Immediately, surprise gushed up in his eyes. As expected of a rarely seen super city in the ancient battlefield, both the numbers and the quality of the practitioners here had reached a rather high level. This was truly a place where dragons hid and outstanding individuals gathered. Brother Lin Dong, it is forbidden to fly in the skies above Thousand Elephant City, hence we can only enter through the city gates. The super sects have stationed their men here and everyone needs to follow their rules. Sukue gazed at the vast city in the distance as he explained. Yes. Lin Dong nodded his head. He had some knowledge about Thousand Elephant City. It did not matter how formidable a character one was, they all needed to behave themselves here. That was because there were very few individuals who were foolish enough to challenge the authority of the super sects. After all, the main reason everyone came here was to pass through the countless rounds of selection and eventually become a disciple of these super sects, that were titans of the world. Oh, that's right, Brother Lin Dong, the three of you should have the qualifications to enter the Nirvana rankings, right? For your first visit, the most important thing is to obtain a Nirvana seal. As if something had suddenly struck him, Sukue suddenly said. Nirvana seal. Lin Dong was momentarily stunned. If you want to take part in the final 100 Empire War, the first prerequisite is to possess a Nirvana seal. This thing is akin to a ticket that one cannot do without. Sukue smiled as he explained. Normally, as long as one reaches the 2 Yuan Nirvana stage, one would have the qualifications to receive a Nirvana seal. However, the Nirvana seal is also categorized into 3 different levels: heaven, earth, and man. The Nirvana seal in my hands is the most ordinary man level. Sukue awkwardly smiled before stretching out his hand. One could discern something flickering at the center of his palm. Faintly, a grey pagoda-like symbol appeared. What do the different Nirvana seal levels represent? Lin Dong inquired. They are a kind of embodiment of one's strength. Normally, most people would only possess a man-level Nirvana seal, while a few extra-talented individuals would have the qualifications to possess an Earth-level Nirvana seal. As for the Heaven-level Nirvana seal, these belong to existences that no one would dare to offend. According to what I know, practically all the practitioners who possess the Nirvana seal also possess the qualifications to contest in the Nirvana Golden Rankings. Nirvana Golden Rankings. Hearing this extremely serious name once again, Lin Dong slowly nodded. As long as one had the qualifications to enter the Nirvana Golden Rankings, one would be able to enter the Super Sect's eyes. No wonder the competition was so fierce. How are the Nirvana seal levels decided? According to one's strength on the surface? Changing the topic, Lin Dong curiously asked. There is a Nirvana monument in Thousand Elephant City. After being tested, the names every practitioner who has the qualifications to enter the Nirvana rankings will automatically appear on its surface. At the same time, the Nirvana monument will also get a reading of your battle power and even potential. With all this information, it will allocate to the Nirvana seal accordingly. Sukue chuckled as he elaborated. Oh. Lin Dong was a little moved. To think that this Nirvana monument was actually so powerful that it could even get a reading of one's hidden potential? Similar Nirvana monuments have been placed here by the super sects and each super city has one. According to my news, these Nirvana monuments are true blue heavenly soul treasures, Sukue said in a low voice. Heavenly soul treasures. The astonishment in Lin Dong's eyes grew even more intense. Soon after, he involuntarily wet his lips. Quite some time had passed since he first entered the ancient battlefield and he had also entered a considerable number of treasure troves. Yet, even in the ancient secret treasure trove, he had never encountered a heavenly soul treasure. From this, one could see how rare and precious this level of soul treasures were. To think that the super sects would be so wealthy that they were actually able to place such a heavenly soul treasure in each major city. Ha ha, please do not harbor any ideas about this treasure. Whoever harbors even the smallest ill thought about this Nirvana monument will be immediately eliminated from the 100 Empire War. Even one's empire will not be spared and will likely lose the qualifications to enter the next 100 Empire War. Sukue jokingly said. Upon hearing this, Lin Dong also smiled. He was no fool. A heavenly soul treasure might be formidable, but it could only be enjoyed by a living person. The fury of the super sects could instantly wipe out even a high-ranked empire. Towards those titans, Lin Dong did not dare to behold the slightest bit of contempt. In that case, let's first head for the Nirvana monument area. Since the Nirvana seal was something they could not do without, it would be best to obtain it as soon as possible, so as to avoid any mishap that would potentially deny them the right to participate in the 100 Empire War. After all, if such an event happened, Lin Dong would truly be in a rather difficult spot. Sukue smiled and nodded, before leading Lin Dong and the others as they landed outside the city. As a super city, there were dozens of entrances into Thousand Elephant City. However, each entrance was flooded with people, yet, the most peculiar thing was that these people were in rather orderly lines. The chaos that was usually seen in other areas seemed to have completely disappeared here. This sight caused Lin Dong to secretly praise the super sect's prestige. Those that came here were perhaps no ordinary individuals and were each as wild as a noble steed. Yet, every single one of them followed the rules here. Lin Dong and his party joined the queue. In approximately half an hour, they finally entered the enormous city successfully. The instant they entered the city, a terrifying wave of noise filled with a surging heat hit them in the face, causing Lin Dong and gang to slightly squint while trying to adapt. Quickly, they opened their eyes to gaze upon the black mass of people that on the immense streets, to which they could not help but bitterly smile. As expected of a super city. Let's go to the Nirvana Monument area. Lin Dong did not have any intentions of strolling about and immediately spoke to Sukue. Let's attend to the important matters first. Sukue nodded his head in response and led the way while the rest followed behind. They traveled through the maze-like streets and about half an hour later, they finally arrived at the center of Thousand Elephant City. When they reached the central district, Lin Dong lifted his gaze and looked towards the center of the city. An incomparably large plaza towered there. The plaza was roughly 100 feet tall and the wide stone steps that led to the plaza was choked with people. Lin Dong's gaze swept around before concentrating on the center of the giant plaza. A giant golden monument silently stood there like a mountain. Golden light twinkled on its surface. The light gathered to form circles of golden light that enveloped the giant monument's surroundings. This resplendent golden light caused the monument to become the most dazzling and attention-grabbing object in the entire super city. Is that the Nirvana monument? Lin Dong gazed at the titanic object and involuntarily licked his lips while mumbling as he felt the frightening undulations that it gave off. Today, he had finally experienced the might of a heavenly soul treasure. A giant golden monument was quietly erected at that spot, while a golden halo slowly extended from within. Meanwhile, a powerful vibration faintly spread out, causing one to be wary of underestimating it. Lin Dong stared at that large golden monument for a while, before he finally retracted his gaze. At the same time, he slowly retracted the awe in his eyes. He could see countless names carved on that large golden monument. He guessed that those must have been the elite individuals who passed the test and obtained the Nirvana seal. Right now, there were quite a number of people crowding in front of the large golden monument. This is one of the most spectacular attractions in the Wanxiang city, and for most elite individuals who came to the city, they would seek to obtain the Nirvana seal. At the same time, they also wanted to use the opportunity to size up the other powerful practitioners who came from everywhere else. Lin Dong's group walked along that towering large arena until they finally found a spot that had a pretty good view of the large golden monument. No wonder it's termed a super city. Look at the number of elite individuals here. Seems like most of the powerful individuals in the ancient battlefield have gathered here. Little Martin scanned his surroundings before he smiled and said. Lin Dong gently nodded his head while he scanned his surroundings. The individuals who could brave the arduous journey and reach this city have mostly reached the Nirvana stage. Lin Dong's sweeping gaze eventually stopped at a spot nearest to the Nirvana monument. Promptly, he gently furrowed his brows. That was because he could sense several powerful auras at that spot. At the spot in front of them, there were three factions that attracted Lin Dong's attention. The one on the left had approximately a dozen over men. All of them had pretty powerful auras, and standing in the middle, there was a man dressed in silver clothes. That man was quite handsome, however. That carefree and greedy smile plastered over his face led one to understand that this man was a vicious and cruel person. Of course, in Lin Dong's opinion, he had the right to be so. Based on the aura that faintly seeped out from his body, this man actually did not lose out to the two generals from the Great Gan Empire that he had met previously. Evidently, he was quite a fearsome individual. With regards to the faction in the middle, there was a dazzling and alluring figure dressed in white. That was the focal point of the entire city. This girl has a rather beautiful face, however, her whole body gave off an forbidding icy cold aura. Looking at a distance away, she seemed just like an unmelting millennial ice. Obviously, she completely disregarded the various happenings around her while her beautiful eyes locked onto the large golden monument. Green silk poured down just like a waterfall, while her beautiful and slim waist curved a beautiful curve, causing most people around her to drool. On the right, there was another group of men. These men were dressed in different clothes, while standing in front of them was a man dressed in black clothes. That man had his hands behind his back and his facial expression was calm, just like a desolate spring. One could not discern the bottom of his expression. Interesting, Lin Dong's eyes swept across those three factions as he softly muttered to himself. Those three factions did not look simple at all. In fact, he was clearly aware that factions like these were not the only ones in the Wanxiang city. The ones on the left should be members from the Silverwood Empire. They are also a high-ranked empire, and the man leading them is called Yin Senator. It is reputed that he has reached the peak of 3 Yuan Nirvana stage. His attitude is extremely arrogant and he has quite a reputation in Wanxiang city. Sukue softly said as he introduced him. A truly irritating fellow. Standing aside, Su Ruo softly added on. Upon hearing her words, Lin Dong glanced curiously at Su Ru. Immediately, her cheeks turned red as she lowered her head in a cute fashion. Ha ha, that fellow met with Xiao Ru before and pestered her a few times. He is indeed a little irritating, Sukue smiled as he elaborated. Seems like Xiao Ruo is pretty attractive. Lin Dong chuckled as he stared at that lady's beautiful and red face, before he involuntarily teased her. Su Ruo's originally blushed face turned even more red after Lin Dong's tease. Immediately, she raised her beautiful limbs and hid her face. That lady dressed in white is called Mu Han Yu. She has quite a reputation, don't look down on her. Backing her is a super empire. Therefore, most people who lust after her ended up in a rather sorry state. Su Kuei once again diverted the topic, before he pointed at that dazzling white figure and said. Another member from a super empire, Lin Dong was somewhat startled as he stared at that alluring figure dressed in white. This is indeed the Wanxiang city. It turns out that they could easily encounter a member of the super empire. The ones on the right are fairly particular. They are not from a single empire, but rather an alliance of various empires. Even though their empires are not famous, every one of them is quite powerful. In particular, that man dressed in black, it is reputed that he previously obtained an inheritance from an ancient sect. Furthermore, his strength is at the peak of the 3-yuan nirvana stage. Previously, a man from a high-ranked empire who tried to oppose him was directly destroyed him alone. Oh. Lin Dong gently lifted his brows and glanced at that black-clothed man, with his hands behind his back. It seems like he finally understood just how many hidden tigers and dragons there were in Wanxiang City. Since they are here, it is likely that they are gunning after the Nirvana seal. I wonder what levels would these guys obtain, Su Kuei curiously asked. Lin Dong gently nodded his head with a gentle curiously in his mind. He was also curious to find out how these powerful-looking individuals would fare in the face of the Nirvana Monument test. Right now, with the passage of time, there were more and more people gathering in front of the Nirvana Monument. Along the way, some individuals tried the test. However, most of them only obtained a human Nirvana seal and it was hardly spectacular. After observing for a while, Lin Dong realized that the people who could obtain a Nirvana seal were mostly at the 2-yuan Nirvana stage. 2-yuan Nirvana stage will allow one to obtain a human Nirvana seal. Typically speaking, once one advances to 3-yuan Nirvana stage, one can barely obtain a Earth Nirvana seal. When I first took the test, I was only at 2-yuan Nirvana stage. Therefore, I could only obtain a human Nirvana seal. Once I test myself again, I should be able to replace it with a Earth Nirvana seal. Of course, even after I obtain a Nirvana seal, my ranking would be near the bottom. Standing beside him, Su Kuei said. Lin Dong smiled, while his eyes focused on that large Nirvana monument. It seems like each time someone passed the test, their names would appear on the Nirvana monument. However, most of their names were at the bottom. It seems like the higher your name is, the more powerful you are. When he thought of this point, Lin Dong's attention involuntarily shifted up. Moments later, in the middle of that large monument, he saw two familiar names. Shu Tianhua, Mu Huang. It seems like the two generals from Great Gen Empire were around the above-average group in the Earth level. As Lin Dong stared at that Nirvana monument, a commotion suddenly erupted in the arena. As he continued to observe, he saw Yin Sen, from the Yin Mu Empire, take charge and make the first move, before he stood arrogantly in front of the Nirvana monument. As the most outstanding existence in the arena, the appearance of Yin Mu immediately caused many people to turn their attention towards them. In fact, even that lady dressed in white, who had been generally ignoring her surroundings, shifted her attention. Under the attention of the crowd, Yin Sen stood in front of that large Nirvana monument, before he extended his palm and placed it gently above that icy-cold monument. His figure stood still. In the next moment, an extremely powerful Yuan power vibration violently gushed out from within Yin Sen's body, and caused shock to surface on the onlookers' faces. Furthermore, as that powerful Yuan power vibration gushed out, a golden glow erupted from the Nirvana monument, which started from Yin Sen's palm, before it quickly traveled upwards. In mere moments, he had directly exceeded the limits of human level and directly charged into Earth level. Furthermore, it continued to charge upwards. Amidst the chorus of the crowd, it finally stopped. Lin Dong saw that amidst the coursing golden glow, Yin Sen's golden-plated name finally surfaced. As he lifted up his head, he realized that there were only 8 names in front of him. That is to say, this Yin Sen was actually ranked 9th amongst the Earth level. This ranking was several times more powerful than the Shu Tianhua duo. Ninth ranking amongst Earth category. Beside the Nirvana monument, a series of chorus erupted. Evidently, this was a pretty high ranking. Mu Hanyu is about to make a move too. Just as the crowd were in awe over Yin Sen's ranking, that beautiful snow-colored figure, dressed in white, finally stepped forward. Beauty Lin, do you have the ability to surpass me? As Yin Sen stared at Mu Hanyu's beautiful and alluring figure, he involuntarily licked his lips before he asked. That lady dressed in white casually glanced at him. However, she did not bother about him. Instead, she stopped right in front of the Nirvana monument before she extended her beautiful snow-white hands. When he saw that Mu Hanyu did not even bother about her, Yin Sen immediately pursed his lips. Though he felt somewhat frustrated, he did not push his luck. After all, he knew who was backing Mu Hanyu. While she was the focal point of the entire crowd, a golden glow extended from Mu Hanyu's palm, before a golden glow swiftly coursed up the Nirvana monument. Similarly, it successfully broke through to the Earth level category before it continuously surpassed the names carved on it. Finally, while Yin Sen's looked on hideously, it even surpassed his name. 18 Earth level. One rank higher than Yin Sen. Mu Hanyu's results once again sparked a commotion. This result was pretty decent. At the very least, she could be considered as an elite member even in the entire ancient battlefield. Not simple individuals. Lin Dong softly chuckled. With regards to this Nirvana monument, his interest in it was growing. Promptly, his attention turned towards that man dressed in black clothes, with his hands behind his back. This man had been silent since the start, and he was not overly shocked by Yin Sen and Hanyu's results. I wonder how high that guy will rank amongst the Earth category. Lin Dong somewhat curiously looked at him, while he muttered to himself. After Lin Dong spoke, that man dressed in black clothes slowly stepped forwards. Finally, under the attention of the entire crowd, he stood in front of the Nirvana monument. This black-clothed man clearly possessed quite a strong reputation within the Wanxiang city. Hence, the countless number of gazes from around turned towards him when he appeared. Their eyes were filled with a curious expression. Mu Hanyu's pretty eyes also turned towards that black-clothed man. She had heard of the latter's reputation. However, she was unaware of just what kind of level this ruthless character, who had once destroyed a high-rank empire all by himself, would actually reach in this Nirvana monument's test. Yin Sen narrowed his eyes slightly. The expressions in the eyes that he used to stare at the black-clothed man was a little unnatural. By relying on his sharp instinct, he was able to sense a kind of faint dangerous feeling from this black-clothed man. This kind of feeling was something that he would only normally sense from the top 5 people of the Earth-grade Nirvana seal. Is that fellow really that strong? This kind of feeling caused Yin Sen's heart to feel a little displeased. Based on his domineering nature, he naturally did not like to see others surpassing him. That black-clothed man focused his eyes as he stood in front of the Nirvana monument. He slowly extended his hand and made contact with the Nirvana monument. After a brief deep silence, a bright golden light suddenly erupted from his palm. The golden light this time around was actually much stronger than Yin Sen and Mu Hanyu earlier. The golden glow appeared before it shot upwards at a shocking speed, while numerous exclamations rushed out from the surroundings in a ripple-like manner. Swoosh swoosh! The golden glow swiftly flew past and directly adapted a stance like no one was able to block him, as he rampantly charged into the Earth-grade category. He passed by countless individuals before it entered the top 10. After which, he surpassed Yin Sen and Mu Hanyu almost instantly. He is already at the 7th spot. He actually shows signs of still being able to charge forward. This fellow is actually this strong. Numerous exclamations were emitted almost immediately when everyone saw this situation. Under this exclamation, that golden glow had surpassed Yin Sen and Mu Hanyu. Instead, it leaped upwards at a slower pace. Each time he leaped successfully, he would cause the surroundings to erupt noisily. 5th. The golden glow flashed and leaped past the 6th name and forced the 5th name downwards. Only at this moment did the golden glow gradually become dim. Finally, it agglomerated into 2 large golden-colored words. Chang Ling. Earth category, Fifth. Dense soft private conversation spread apart suddenly along with the surrounding noise as everyone looked at the name which was frozen. It stirred quite a great commotion. Yin Sen's expression was a displeased one. He coldly snorted. Clearly, he was unhappy at this person having more limelight than him. Mu Hanua's icy cold eyes also flickered at this moment. She similarly did not expect that Chang Ling was actually able to directly charge to the 5th spot of the Earth category. This ability could be compared with the prized fighters from some super sects. Is this person called Chang Ling? He is indeed quite strong. Lin Dong also carried a surprise on his face as he watched this scene. From the reactions of those around, Lin Dong was aware that the result Chang Ling had obtained was quite incredible. It is indeed very great. He is actually able to charge to the 5th of the Earth category. This fellow, Tsukue nodded and sighed. Those 4 in front are all competent fighters from super sects and they are all extremely powerful. Unexpectedly, this Chang Ying was actually this close to them. Incredible indeed. Lin Dong smiled. The smile in his heart became increasingly dense. He really wanted to know just what level he would be able to reach at this Nirvana monument. Chang Ying raised his head and looked at the position he had obtained from in front of the Nirvana monument. He frowned slightly as if he felt a little displeased. However, he also understood that reaching this stage was already his limit. Immediately, he turned and returned to his comrades. A heated tide continued to remain in the large arena after the ordinary remnant test was completed. Quite a number of people had some envy within their eyes. It had been almost a year since they had entered this realm. Before heading to this place, they were the outstanding talent from their own empires. However, they must understand that even geniuses are divided into levels. Many ordinary experts gradually became mediocre in this place. Of course, there are also some geniuses who had become increasingly outstanding amidst the harsh competition. They experienced many hardships and gradually became someone great. We should also go and try. Tsukue was also ready to give it a go at this moment. Hence, he turned to Lin Dong's group and said. Lin Dong smiled and nodded. After which, his group walked out and directly headed for the enormous Nirvana monument. Their group naturally did not attract as much attention as Yin Sen and the 2 others. Hence, there were naturally not many people paying attention to them. Everyone thought that they were merely a group of ordinary people. Tsukue took the lead to touch the Nirvana monument. His 3 Yuan Nirvana stage strength also completely erupted at this moment. Golden light surged. After charging forward for a while, it finally charged into the Earth category, allowing him to heave a sigh of relief. Although his ranking was far inferior to Yin Sen, being able to charge into the Earth category was already quite a significant result for him. Tsukue looked at his own result before parting his mouth to laugh. It seems that his training during this period of time was not wasted. Big Brother is really incredible. Suruo was not stingy with her praises. Her face was filled with a joyous smile. Hee, little Suruo, if this result can be considered as incredible, does it mean that Big Brother Yin Sen has become the Princess Charming in your eyes? Suruo's voice had just sounded when a teasing laughter that spoilt the mood was suddenly transmitted over. Everyone turned their heads before finally seeing Yin Sen walking over with a smile on his face. His gaze continued to sweep over Suruo's lovely body, causing her to feel disgusted. You? Suruo's pretty face immediately flashed with fury when she saw Yin Sen walking over. Yin Sen, you should clean your mouth. Tsukue's expression sunk as she coldly cried out. I heard that you were being hunted by the Wind Cloud Empire? Why have you returned? Do you want to come to my side? Little Suruo and I are a perfect match. She will not lose out by becoming mine. Yin Sen smilingly said. His face was covered by a domineering smile. Don't you agree, little Suruo? Yin Sen asked as he planned to stand together with Suruo. Swoosh! Just as Yin Sen was about to step forward, a black figure that contained an extremely great pressure was suddenly transmitted. It directly shook the entire sky and ruthlessly struck towards Yin Sen's throat. This sudden attack caused Yin Sen to be slightly startled. However, he was also quite strong. His body flashed and he dodged it. His gaze was a little dark and solemn as he looked at Little Flame, who was holding a metal rod, which was being pointing at him. The expressions of those experts from the Silverwood Empire behind Yin Sen changed drastically upon seeing this situation. Strong Yuan power flowed out before they stared menacingly at Lin Dong's group. Su Ruo also took a small step back upon witnessing this atmosphere, which had suddenly become tensed. Su Ruo also took a small step back and stood beside Lin Dong without realizing it. Do you have the ability to resolve the issues with Wind Cloud Empire? Someone who can only boast is not a man. Lin Dong smilingly looked at Yin Sen and said. Yin Sen's expression changed slightly. Although he was domineering, he was not a fool. The Wind Cloud Empire was a genuine super empire. Based on his current strength, it was naturally impossible for him to face off against them. Those words spoken earlier were undoubtedly just an attempt to take advantage of Su Ruo. Why? From the looks of it, you have already found someone to protect you. However, I'm afraid that this person who has caught your eyes is just like the wax on a silver gun, pleasant on the eye but of no use. Yin Sen laughed coldly. His words were quite vicious. Su Ruo was so furious that her small face became red. She was just about to burst out in anger when Lin Dong in front of her simply waved his hand. Little Martin by the side also lazily said, "Do you want to throw this fellow out?" There was already quite a number of people near the Nirvana monument who had been attracted by the atmosphere. Even Mu Hanyu and Chang Ling had thrown their gazes over. All of them involuntarily became startled when they heard Little Martin's words. Their gazes were a little surprised as they carefully observed Little Martin after having heard these words. Those eyes of theirs were a little unique as they slowly looked at the casual Little Martin. Regardless of how hateful the mouth of this Yin Sen was, he was at the very least a person who had charged into the top 10 of the Nirvana Earth stage. It was likely that one would not be able to throw him out without some ability. Their eyes swept over Little Martin's body, attempting to probe Little Martin's background. However, regardless of how they probed, they was unable to sense anything unique. Throw me. Yin Sen had clearly become completely infuriated by Little Martin's words as he laughed. There might perhaps be a handful of people in the Wanxiang city who are qualified to say such words to me. However, your group is not amongst them. Sukue, the next time you wish to find a support, please find a smarter person. Otherwise, you will only get into more and more trouble. How troublesome. Little Martin gently clenched his hand. His handsome face revealed a smile. The heart of Sukue by the side trembled upon seeing Little Martin's manner. He had personally saw Little Martin finish off Yang Mo from the Wind Cloud Empire within a few minutes. Let's do the important things first. Lin Dong suddenly waved his hand just when Little Martin was planning on finishing off this hateful fellow on the spot. After which, he turned his body. His eyes stared at the Nirvana monument in front of him. He placed one hand behind his back as he extended his right palm and gently touched the icy cool monument. Perhaps it was because of Little Martin's somewhat unique words from earlier that the surrounding people, including Yin Sen, Mu Hanyu, and Chang Ling, turned their eyes towards Lin Dong at this moment. From the scene in front of them, it seemed that Lin Dong was the leader of this group. If they wished to tell if these people really had the ability or if they were acting, all they needed to do was to look at the subsequent test result to get an accurate answer. Yin Sen's eyes revealed an icy cold smile. Coldness flowed within his eyes. He had already made up his mind. After the test result of Lin Dong's group come out, he would personally attack and let these ignorant people, who had just arrived in the Wanxiang city, to know just what kind of price they must pay by speaking such arrogant words in this place. Lin Dong's body did not move in front of the countless number of gazes. His hand had just touched the icy cold surface of the monument when it shook. He could clearly sense an extremely unique energy spreading out from within that Nirvana monument, scanning every part of his body. The Yuan power within Lin Dong's body and the mental energy within his Niwan palace actually began to show signs of rippling under this kind of scanning. The scanning continued. This kind of scanning strength was quite unique. It was actually able to vaguely probe at the mysterious stone talisman within Lin Dong's body. Even the ancient universe formation and the devouring ancestral symbol were discovered. This caused Lin Dong to be slightly startled. A thought passed through his mind and a sudden strength erupted from within that mysterious stone symbol and the devouring ancestral symbol. It directly shattered the scanning strength as it did so. Buzz! Waves after waves of bright golden glow suddenly surged from Lin Dong's palm, which was touching the stone monument, after the scanning strength disappeared. The intensity of the golden glow was so dense that it was similar to that of a gold-colored sun. The golden glow shone. All the faces around it had become shocked at this moment. Swoosh! Golden light spat out from Lin Dong's hand. With a swoosh sound, it shot out along its surface. After which, it began to climb manically in front of the many shaken gazes. This video will end here.